Welcome to Tolleson-Mack. Today, the podcast is brought to you by Turtlebox. Check out turtlebox.com for all your cool Turtlebox stereo needs.
Bluetooth stereo. It's very waterproof.
Oh, yeah, those are the ones we take to the lake.
Yeah, they're waterproof, snowproof, dirt-proof, everything proof.
Pretty awesome.
Hell of a deal. And a really nice guy that owns that company. Shout out John.
Cool. Well, hey, today I got a special guest on here. We brought in Jerry Sheridan. I'm very happy to have you here. He is going to be the next sheriff of Maricopa County. And as rural people, me and Brandon, we really appreciate Jerry because we think a guy like Jerry should be running the sheriff's department. Because how long have you been in the sheriff's department?
I was there 40 years.
Wow.
This ain't your first rodeo.
Nope.
Well, why don't you give the listeners a little background? You know, like where you grew up
Yep.
and when you moved over here, all the good
Oh,
stuff.
really?
Yeah.
You want them to know where I grew up?
I had to throw you upside down.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in New York City.
Oh, shit.
And when I was 18 years old, my dad and my uncles were New York City cops. And my dad came to me and my little brother. I was 18. My brother's 14. And he goes, "Boys, we're moving to Arizona." And I'm thinking, where the hell is that? And my little brother goes, "They got McDonald's there, Dad?" Well, they'd just built a McDonald's right down the street from us, so he was in heaven. And I'm like, next thing you know, I found myself in Arizona. I met a deputy sheriff sitting under a shade tree, Maricopa County Sheriff's deputy, and he loved his job, and he was talking about it. And a couple months later, I joined the sheriff's office when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
What year was that?
That was 1977.
47 years ago.
Yeah, and so I did that as a volunteer for about a year and a half. I went to work in the jail for a short time, and I became a deputy sheriff, graduated the police academy in February 1979. And I remember sitting there in the class thinking, well, I can retire in 1999. Man, that's never going to get here. You know? And so I got to tell you, we were talking about Jerry Hill, before we got on the show.
Yeah, so Jerry Hill, for everybody that's listening, that's Jake Holloway's grandpa.
Yep. I knew his name was Jerry. I knew
So
that.
that's
Yep.
big. Everybody that listens to the show knows Big Jake Holloway. So
Okay.
that's Jake's
Well,
grandpa.
well, Jake, you should be very proud of your grandpa because he stood there, and Jerry Hill was the last of the real cowboy sheriffs, right? So he had ostrich skin boots that were turquoise, right? And he
Like that.
had a big old silver belly cowboy hat that he wore all the time, and a big old belt buckle, right?
Yeah.
And we were there that morning. We were going to graduate, and there was 3 police chiefs there because there was Phoenix cops in the room. There was Scottsdale and I think Tempe cops, right? And so the 3 police chiefs are there, and us. And after they got done giving their little rah-rah speech to their guys, Jerry Hill goes, "Boys, stand up." So we all stood up, and he said, "Today, when I swear you in, on the back of your commission card, it's going to say that you are to act as if I myself were present." You know what that means, boys? Of course, we didn't. They didn't teach us that in the police academy. And he says, what that means is that as soon as I swear you in as a deputy sheriff, you can tell any one of these police chiefs what to do because the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer in this county, and nobody tells the sheriff what to do.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
That was the day I realized there was a difference between being a city cop and a deputy sheriff. And so I spent the next 38 years, 17 of those years in a patrol car. I got promoted to corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, and eventually I made captain in, I think it was 1993. Joe Arpaio had just come in as sheriff, and somebody retired, and I got his position. I did that for a couple years, and I've worked every part of the county except the Buckeye area.
Really?
It's the only place that I didn't work. And because I live way over on the east side.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and a half from here, by the way. And so I did that for a while, and sheriff comes to me and he goes, Jerry, he says, you ready for change? I said, sure, Sheriff. He goes, oh, you want to go to Gila Bend, huh? And I'm like, yeah, Sheriff, whatever you want me to do. And he goes, nah, he says, I want to promote you to chief over the patrol bureau. So now I had the whole county, the law enforcement side of the county, under my command. I did that for a few years. Then the sheriff comes to me a couple years later. He goes, you ready for change? And I said, what are you going to do? Send me to Gila Bend? He starts laughing. And he goes, no, no, no. He said, I want you to run the jails for me. And I'm like, what? You want me to do what? I want you to run the jails. He must have saw this look on my face. And he says, why? You could do that job. He said, I love the way you do things. I want you to run my jails. And well, the reason I had that look on my face is I was scared because the taxpayers, this was 1998, had voted a $1 billion sales tax to build new jails, hire thousands of officers, infrastructure to go with it. And in typical government fashion, until you get on the school board, you're going to change this. In typical government fashion, none of the work had been done. And so basically what he did was he laid that in my lap. So we built the 4th Avenue jail. We built the Lower Buckeye jail. It's the 4th largest county jail system in the country. And to give you an idea how big the system is, when we built the new kitchen, we built a freezer the size of a football field.
Holy shit.
At that time, we were serving about 30,000 meals a day.
Wow. And is that when Arpaio did all his meal changes and all that?
Well, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We did all that stuff. Tent City was already up and running by the time I got there, but I managed it. I did that for 12 years. And the reason that's important, and I bring up the jails, is 75% of the sheriff's office is that jail system. 25%, the other 25% is the law enforcement function.
Wow.
We're primary. A lot of people don't know that, and they realize it. And so the last couple sheriffs we had, they didn't know anything about, well, like the guy that just quit in January, he didn't know jack about it. He was a city cop. And the system in the last 7.5 years has crashed. They're averaging about 49 deaths a year in custody deaths. And as a comparison, when I was running the system, we averaged about 7. That's 7 too many. But, people do die in custody. They come off the street and drugs and all. But the big issue with the jail system currently is they've got a huge fentanyl problem in the jail system.
Yeah.
So there was 5 homicides within a matter of 2 months, and the inmates on inmate fighting over the drug thing. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. We've got a bad problem in this county with drugs coming in. He's done nothing. He can't even control it in his own jail system. How the hell is he going to help the 4.6 million people in this county?
So I want you to keep talking, but I have to interject here. When I first met Jerry a couple of years ago, talking to him, and I mean, he didn't know me from nobody, right? Just a guy out here. And I started talking to him, and the one thing that he said to me that stuck is, I've never been a fan of Penzone. I can say whatever I want about Penzone. I'm not running for any sheriff's office or anything, but I thought he did a horrible job. I think as a boss, and you got to be respected, right? Your guys have to work for you out of respect, not out of fear, because fear, they're not going to work for you. They're gonna, when you're standing there, they might work for you, but they're not going to work for you. So I was telling him, I said, man, is it true? I heard that Penzone has got a bunch of bodyguards. And he goes, yeah. And I said, do all the sheriffs have bodyguards? He goes, Jerry says, why the hell would I have a bodyguard? I'm the sheriff.
Yeah.
And that, for some reason, sunk in with me because you don't even think about it, but yeah, why would the sheriff need a bodyguard? That should tell you all you need to know about Penzone.
One thing you said that I really didn't realize, and I think a lot of people didn't realize this too, is the sheriff department's more than just what you see patrolling the streets. You said there's 75% of you guys are at facilities, which are jails and stuff like that, doing those jobs. So that's the uniqueness of being a sheriff deputy, other than a city cop or something, because city cops don't have jails to 90. Would you say what percentage of city cops are out on the streets?
Oh, probably at least half. And then the other half are probably detectives, and some probably,
Yeah.
do some other jobs. But, that's the big difference between being a sheriff and all sheriff's offices. There's 3,300 sheriffs in the country. And most of especially back east, the sheriffs are just relegated to run the jail system. But out west here, because we don't have a state police, the sheriff handles all the criminal issues outside the city limits, right? And
Yeah.
so the sheriff is more like a state police per county, and but the sheriff being an elected official is a key issue with law enforcement. Sheriffs are the only elected law enforcement officers in the nation. And what that means is the sheriff doesn't report to the board of supervisors. I know Bob Branch is,
Yeah.
he was on the show,
Mhm.
and I will work with Bob, if he gets elected, when he gets elected, and I will have to work with them because they control the purse
Yeah,
strings
sure.
right now. You know
But
how
that's
it
pretty
goes.
simple.
Yeah. So, but they can't tell me what to do. Nobody can. Not the governor, not the president of the United States. And that's a great thing about being the sheriff, because the sheriff just reports to the people, directly to the people, like we did. And that, when the first time I met you, um, it was at a meeting. I don't know how you called me or something. You said, "Hey, you want to come down here?"
I couldn't believe it. I just messaged you on Facebook and you called me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't believe it.
So I'm running for sheriff. This is a big county. I'm not just going to concentrate on the cities.
Right.
I'm going to get out here to the people, my people.
Yeah.
Now I gotta clarify why I say my people. Okay. All right. So when I grew up, my dad used to take us to the stables, and some of the precincts in the city had horses. They had mounted unit, great mounted unit, NYPD. And I just
do
went
have beautiful
crazy over
horses.
that. So I grew up. Well, I'll tell you this story. So I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was in the car with my dad. My dad he was a detective at the time, and so he had a radio in his car. And a call came out of shooting. Two officers were shot in a bank robbery, and we were like 2 blocks away. Right? It's Manhattan. It's in the summer. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. People are still out. Thousands and thousands of people are on the sidewalks. And so my dad says, "Get down. We're gonna go." And so I look out the window, because I didn't get down. I look out the window and I see two New York City mounted cops at a full gallop down the sidewalk. It was like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
And bodies were going all over the place. And I've even got goosebumps right now. I wanted to be a New York City mounted cop so bad.
Yeah, that's pretty
And so I grew up, wanting horses, but hell, I lived in Queens. We didn't have horses there. So we moved to Arizona, and 37 years ago, I met my wife. She's born and raised here. She had horses. So I've been horse poor the last 36 years. I've got a couple horses now. I've adopted some horses and done all that, And the horse is the cheapest part of the deal,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because now you need the 5 acres. Now you need the dually.
The trailers.
Now you need the trailer.
This guy with the hay. Yeah.
Yeah. We just bought, I feed pellets. We just bought 4 tons of pellets just the other day, and it was like $1,900.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. I was born and raised in New York City, but when I was 17, I had a great job, and I bought myself a car. You know what I bought? I bought myself a half-ton Dodge Power Wagon. I was probably the only kid in New York City with a friggin'
Pickup.
4-wheel drive pickup truck.
Probably. Did you bring it with you when you came?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. And so anyway, that's a little bit of how I can maybe relate to your audience a little bit more now.
Of course.
And being a deputy sheriff for 40 years.
Well, I know a few people that have been out here. Like we're generational. He's generational, but I'd say a pretty solid 50% of people in Arizona aren't generational.
I've been here 48 years.
That's a generation.
One thing, I just came back from Manhattan. I went in November for the very first time, and I couldn't believe how Central Park is it's so massive.
Mm.
And then how the buildings just go straight down and
Yeah.
just park and then straight up.
Yeah, he
It's
was
like
sending me pictures from there. I'm like,
it's like something out of a movie. Like
Yeah.
it's just like they just cut that whole area out and just put a park. It's
Well,
really
I
nice.
grew up in Queens, and did you ever see the TV show King of Queens?
oh yeah.
The inside of my house
Mhm.
was exactly like that, except opposite.
Oh really?
Exactly like that. And that's the kind of neighborhood I grew up in. I had a great childhood, and back in those days, you know, you could be out until the street lights came on. We had all the buddies in the neighborhood and all that, and it was great. I used to get on the bus and go watch Met games. You know, as a kid,
Yeah.
you can't do that these days. You don't. I don't even. I have grandkids, and man, I don't even want them to walk in the streets of Scottsdale or Fountain Hills. You know, you just times have changed.
Yeah,
And
there's no way I'd walk with my kids in Manhattan anymore. I mean, me and my wife were, it was okay for us, but there was just too much. It was crazy. Times Square. I mean, I never left Tolleson until I went over there, and
Yeah.
it was something.
Well, when we were kids, you know, a little bit older, probably in, you know, 15, 16 years old, we used to get on the bus and go and the train and go down to Manhattan and hang out. And so I was telling you that story earlier, you know, when I came out here and all of a sudden I'm a deputy sheriff in a rural area in Queen Creek. And Queen Creek was orange orchards, grape vineyards.
Well, think of Queen Creek in 70.
This is 1979.
79.
Right.
All farms.
So
said
there
they
was
didn't
nothing
even-
there. It was all farms and
He was
everything
telling me
else.
they didn't even have radios in the car.
No.
No.
Well, we had radios, but they were in the car.
Oh yeah, you couldn't
and
take it with you.
they had tubes that took up the radio receiver, took up half the trunk, and you had to key the mic and wait for those tubes to warm up before you could talk. It was kind of crazy, but you know, that's why that transition that I made, you had to make it quick. And a great story. There's an old guy, Charlie. He was a Korean War vet, Marine, you know, tough guy, redneck. And I don't know why he took a liking to me. Maybe he felt sorry for me or something early on in my
Yeah.
career. And a lot of times he would be the sergeant when we didn't have one on duty. And I was working Queen Creek, and it had rained like a day or two before. And I pulled a car over, right?
Mhm.
So the guy I pulled over was a lot smarter than me, because when he pulled over, he left two wheels on the pavement, and I didn't. And you know what happened to my car? Slid right down into a freshly irrigated cotton field. And I'm up to the doors. I could barely open the doors in the mud. And I just waved at the guy. Says, "Hey, this one's on me, man." And he drove away, you know. And about 5 minutes later, this old farmer coming down the road in his tractor, and he stops and he goes, "Hey, deputy," he said, "you need some help?" I says, "Yeah." I said, "Can you tow me out of here?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I'm going to throw you the chain, but I ain't getting in that mud." So I got out of the car, put the chain on the bumper, you know, he pulled me out, and now I'm covered with mud now. So's the car. I'm like, shh, what am I going to do? So I go find a car wash, you know, hose
Yeah.
everything myself off. And I get back to the substation, and Charlie's waiting there for me. He goes, "Hey, anything happened today on shift?" And I go, no, I'm okay.
Pretty normal day.
He goes, "Yeah." He said, "No, you sure nothing?" I go, "Well, you know," and he starts laughing. And he goes, "You dumbass." He said, "Don't you know, always leave two wheels on the pavement when you're in Queen Creek?" And so I trained a lot of deputies for a lot of years. And one of the things I always did was tell them that story. When you're in these rural areas, always leave two wheels on the pavement, man, because you have no
never know.
idea.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was part of my maturing process as a deputy sheriff. You kind of learn those things. But I thought, you know what, it'd be nice if I put that forward to the next
Pass it on.
generation.
Yeah. So you didn't have to laugh at the guy getting stuck in the cotton field.
No, no.
So let's move on a little bit. Like, I mean, Arpaio.
Yeah.
Like, how was Arpaio to work for?
He was awesome.
Yeah.
He was awesome for a long time. And when he came in, well, we had just, and I'd called it dark ages of my career. We had 4 years of a guy, his name was Tom Agnos, he was assistant chief, Phoenix PD, and he brought some of his Phoenix buddies over to run the sheriff's office, and they all looked down on us that we were a bunch of hillbilly cowboys. We didn't know how to do our job, and
That is kind of the persona that the sheriff's department gets, that they're kind of
We do.
cowboys.
We
That
do.
they're cowboys. Yeah.
we do. And hell, we got a cowboy hat as part of
Yeah,
our
yeah.
uniform. So eh, it was difficult because the culture is so different between a police department and the sheriff's office everywhere in this country, not just here. So they brought in their Phoenix policies, and it didn't go over very well. And so when Joe Arpaio came in, he made his chief deputy was Russell Pierce. You remember that name?
Hmm.
Okay, Russell Pierce was a deputy sheriff for a long time. He grew up there. In fact, he was shot one night. It was right as I joined the sheriff's office, and he was such a badass that he had gotten shot in the chest. He took off part of his finger, and the bullet went in his chest and went around, and they had to take it out of his back. Right? He chased the bad guy down.
Was being shot?
No, he's just a badass.
Oh, but you chased it after you got shot?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said, was he in shock? No,
No.
no. So, so he chased this guy down and arrested him. And so when Arpaio made Russell Pierce the chief deputy, he immediately, within a week, brought us back into where the sheriff's office once again. Okay. And so, because I was worried about Arpaio, because he'd worked with the DEA, he was a Fed for 32 years. I'm thinking, oh no, this
I
guy.
remember when Arpaio was running and getting elected and all. I was young, but I remembered when all that was going on, and that's what everybody was saying. Everybody's like, man, I don't know if this Fed's going to be able to run our county. I don't know if this. I do remember that.
Yep, yep,
What I
yep.
remember about Arpaio, he was like a celebrity. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
He
yeah,
was like,
largely,
Well,
yeah.
he became that, and I'll tell you that was ultimately his downfall.
Yeah.
So he made us deputy sheriffs again, and it's funny because a lot of people back then had no idea what a deputy sheriff was or what a deputy sheriff did until Arpaio got there, and he put us on the map. And I'll give you a great example. When I was working under the Agnos administration, I'm down in Paradise Valley. Okay, there's a county island down there, and so I'm down there, and this older couple. It's probably 8 o'clock at night. This older couple, their car is broken down, and I pull over and I get out, and I help them get a tow truck, and I put them in my car, and I drove them home.
Yeah.
To downtown Phoenix. Okay, so they're in a sheriff's car with a deputy with a sheriff patch on his sleeve, listening to the sheriff's radio. And when I took them home, I got them. I always used to say, hey, don't ever forget the sheriff's office gave you a hand when you needed it. And the guy looks at me and he goes, Sheriff, I thought you were Phoenix PD. When Joe Arpaio hit, about a year or two later, everybody knew that we were deputy sheriffs and what we did do. So he put us on the map. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because, he promoted me to deputy chief over the patrol bureau. He promoted me to run his jail system. And then the last 6 years of my career, I was his chief deputy. And if you know anything about a sheriff's office, the chief deputy runs the daily operation of the place, right?
So nurse runs the hospital.
Exactly. And so I was like, doing everything, going to meetings, and by this time, Arpaio had been there about 20 years or so. So he was kind of backing off and doing his political thing, becoming famous, and he was doing that stuff. And so I pretty much ran things for a while. And, we had a federal civil rights lawsuit hit before I took over as the chief deputy, and, it was a nightmare. So the last 4 years of my career were miserable. I used to call Stacy on the way home, and it used to take me about an hour to drive home. And, there's more than one night that I'd call her on the way home and say, hey, hon, I need a martini when I get in. So I'll tell you how great my wife is. We've been together 36 years.
She's funny on Facebook. She
Oh.
puts the funniest shit on there.
Well, you ought to try living with that girl. So one day I come home and she had a new puppy for me, you know. So she took good care of me. Those last 4 years, they were pretty tough. But again, it's like running that jail system, and being the chief deputy for 6 years. I know how to run that place.
Mhm.
There's nobody, and I've had a political pundit. You probably know his name, but I don't want to quote him because he didn't say it officially. He said it to me and Stacy. He said, Jerry, he said, there's never been a candidate for sheriff as qualified as you ever.
That I agree with.
And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't translate to votes, baby. You know, so I've been hitting it hard for the last 17 months. Out collecting, trying to raise money, getting our signs out. And I've got a bunch of signs for you big,
Oh,
tough
yeah.
cowboys.
Yeah, we'll have some signs.
You gotta,
I'll take it
you
to the
got
roping.
you got a T-post driver,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Okay, because I.
unfortunately, we got hours on a T-post.
Okay, so you know how to do that, and I got the signs for you. I got the rebar
Okay.
and the wires to hook it up, and I'll give you as many as you want. So if you really do love me as much as you say, we'll see how many signs you take.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
we'll get back with you in the next show. I'll let you know how many.
How many we actually took?
Yeah.
Or how many are up? Make us take pictures of them. When we put them
We'll
up.
stick them in the back of the hay truck.
Stick 'em
Yeah.
up. Yeah, we'll put them everywhere like that. Yeah.
How many people are running against you in this
Well,
race?
there's, including me, there's 5 of us. So there's 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, because this shit gets a little confusing. So when Penzone quit, Penzone was a Democrat. With him quitting, a Democrat had to take his place
By law.
by law. Oh, a Republican switched parties, became a Democrat, took his place,
Correct.
and now he's going to be running against you
As a Democrat.
as a Democrat. Oh, okay. But this guy was our current sheriff, right?
He is our current sheriff, and
Yeah.
he was the chief deputy for 6 years.
So before this happened, were you and him like friends?
Oh, no, he worked for me,
That's
Yeah.
what I
the
mean.
current guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you notice that I haven't mentioned anybody else's name, is because you don't do that when you run for office.
No.
You don't give them any name ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so he worked for me. He was a lieutenant, and when he reported to me, so I know him. He's a good
But
guy.
I mean, and I'm not saying this as a question. I don't want you to take this as a question, but that seems a little off to me. Like you jump to the other side just to get the job. Like I don't.
Well, I can tell you that I had somebody of importance ask me even a couple months before Penzone announced he was stepping down. So he must have known something was going on. And he asked me, he said, Jerry, would you change parties so we could appoint you? And I looked at him, I said, no. No, I have to be proud of who I look
Yeah.
back at in the mirror every morning,
Right.
right? I have integrity. I have my morals. I have, my beliefs, and they don't align with the Democrats, But I will say, and I don't know if we want to talk about Trump or anything, what happened
okay.
today.
We're pretty free speech on here. We don't get
So
locked down by nobody.
if you guys don't know, the jury found Trump guilty of all 24 counts today. So my campaign manager, he called me and he says, "Hey, do you want to make a comment about that?" And I said, "Well, I probably should." And he says, "Well, what's the comment?" And I says, "Well, there is no place for partisan politics or bias in the criminal justice system." Okay. Right? Especially a deputy sheriff out here should do his job regardless of the bumper sticker on the car or the color of the skin of the person driving the car. Like some people, that do something wrong in front of you and you pull them over and you get 3 tickets.
3 tickets.
Right.
3 tickets today.
Today. It wasn't me. I'm civilian. I'm nobody. So, and that's the way law enforcement should be. It shouldn't be in criminal justice system, the county attorney, who they prosecute, the courts, the judge. Everybody should be blind equal justice scales. But in this country today, what happened this afternoon, this country's upside down right now.
Yeah.
And so we need people, Republicans, that believe in the Constitution. I believe in the United States Constitution. I consider myself a constitutional conservative. Now, people say, well, Jerry, isn't that going to scare away the independents and Democrats? And I said, no, because if you believe in the Constitution, it protects everybody, all 4.6 million people in this county. And a constitutional sheriff knows that. He will make sure his deputies behave in that manner where everybody is protected and they have constitutional rights and protect them. Second Amendment, okay, was talking about the Constitution. I think that's I asked my dad, I said, why are we moving to Arizona, Dad? And he goes, they don't have any gun laws out there, kid. Because when my brother and I were growing up, my dad didn't throw a baseball or a football to us. I cannot catch a fly ball to save my life. But I can shoot a gun because when he had time to spend with us, he used to take us out to the police range. I shot machine guns. I, shot 1911, Colt 1911. He put it in my right hand. I'm left-handed when I was 5 years old. And that's what we did when we were growing up. So I can shoot pretty damn good.
What they say, God created man, Sam Colt made him equal.
That's right, baby. And I have probably the ultimate Colt piece of American history in my gun safe, and I shoot it, so it's not a safe queen. I've got a 1921 Colt Thompson submachine gun.
Oh, dang. That is pretty cool.
That's a piece of America.
If the guys from Stars see this, they're going to be calling you trying to buy that thing.
Yeah.
He's always trying to buy those cool guns.
Yeah, well, that gun is worth a hell of a lot more than what I paid for it, and I've only had it about 8-9 years.
All right, we're going to take a little break here. Let Craig switch some stuff around. He's nodding his head behind the window there, and we'll be right back to you. Hey, welcome back to the second half of Tolleson-Mack with Jerry Sheridan. The second half is brought to you by ValueTruckOfArizona.com. Check those guys out. They're looking for drivers. They're just good all around. They can haul everything from LTL loads. They haul out for the military. They do all kinds of stuff. Check them out.
Shout out Joey.
Joe,
Up and coming header. He can stick them.
Oh, he can stick bones. That's for sure. All right. Hey, Jerry, what's happening?
Okay.
How do you like the first half so far?
It went by pretty quick, so it must have been good.
Pretty quick. There you go. Must have been good. I got a couple questions for you, but I think Brandon's got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, let's get my questions out of the way.
To get him to ask questions, I'm so excited.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't know how high this is on your priority list. I'm sure it's probably not that high, but man, our biggest thing I hear in the rural area, we've been, multi-generations farming out here. This is how the West was won. SRP was made off the farmers, and that's why these houses here is the water and all that stuff. Well, I mean, there's still pockets of agriculture, and I'm here in one of them. And to get to, for instance, I farm on 59th Avenue and Buckeye Road, and we're 7 miles away. There's times where there's no way for me to get my equipment to these places because of the construction. And I know construction, it has to happen. I get that. But there has to be some kind of a policy in play where they have to go and account for how wide our equipment is. And, I'm not saying that every road has to be wide enough, or I get that, but not every road shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just don't think that there's no voice for us to advocate to some of these people, like, just to think about us just a tad bit, you know what I mean? Or another thing is, like I tell these guys, these construction, and I'll accommodate too. The construction crews finish at 2:00 in the afternoon. Well, move them cones out, or move them blinking lights out. And if that's the time we got to pass is in the afternoons, then so be it. But we have to have some kind of a route. I mean, I'm telling you, to go 7 miles, we might have to go 4 miles up and then go over and cut through a neighborhood. I mean, it is unbelievable the struggles that we're having.
You just don't knock over all their cones.
So I do. I really do.
Yeah.
And the bottom of the cone or the blinking light is kind of a similar situation here with the metal plate. So if my swather can just barely go through, and then we knock this one over and it falls and it gets underneath my back tire and pops it with his metal plate. So I tell my guys, I say, hey, just hit him right in the middle. That way that it falls down right in the middle and doesn't hurt our tires.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the people see us do that, they think we're just being jerks. They think we're just trying to knock them down. Which I tell my guys, once you pass, then go back and pick them up. This and that. We've been pulled over. We've been harassed like crazy. From all agencies, I guess. But there has to be some kind of give and take for us. Like it's just out the wayside. I mean, the cops they pulled us over if there's more than 3 or 4 or 6 cars behind us. Well, nowadays you're gonna get out here and there's gonna be 20 cars behind you. I mean,
Yeah.
there has to be some kind of a
And let me add a little into that. Well, this is all pretty much Phoenix.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I know, but I mean, we have it out there. In
No,
like,
no, you get it in Buckeye too.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, for the most part, like right around here is Phoenix.
Yep.
And I mean, I've been with you before, where these guys, so then they're pulling over the 16-foot wide header in the
Yes.
middle of all the traffic.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, wouldn't you think you guys would let them get through the traffic and then
Yeah.
pull them over? I mean, I don't think Brandon's asking you to fight the fight today, but
I've got a couple suggestions.
yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the urbanization of this county. All right. When I first started in a patrol car, there wasn't even 1 million people in this county. There's 4.6 million now. So it's been urbanized, right? And back in the day, I remember being assigned to block the road so the sheep could cross because
Oh,
they'd
yeah.
bring the sheep down from the White Mountains. They'd keep them out in the fields in Queen Creek in the summer. And then, for the winter, and then when it started to get warm,
Send 'em back.
they'd take them back up. And so that was part of the deal. But they don't do that anymore because the roads and the highways, it's just not practical for them. So my suggestion would be there is a city council member for this area, and get with them. And what you would need is a city ordinance, and either in Buckeye or Phoenix or any of the other cities that you might, Tolleson, I don't know, and have them make an ordinance where when they're done, the construction crews are done for the day, to move the signs off the road. Move the cones off the road. Don't leave them there because they're just being lazy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for you to get by here, this is what you need. And see what they say. And I know we talked before we got on the show about somebody here at this table wanting to run for council one day. And those are the things that a council member can do to make your life easier, even though now a lot of cities are the skinny roads and putting bike lanes in and all this crap out here and way out here. And it's like, it's just crazy. But that's why we need good, common sense thinking people on these city councils and our board of supervisors and as your sheriff to understand the issues that people have every day. Because the sheriff doesn't just arrest people and keep people in jail. I mean, the sheriff is there to serve people.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's sheriffs. They're just not out here arresting people. And I mean, I get mad at them too. I mean, if I get pulled over and I get a ticket for my window tint, I'm gonna be a little pissed off.
One more story that you might be proud of me on this one. So
Threw him right under the bus. You didn't even know.
So you might be proud of me on this one. They dump like crazy out here in these rural areas. Dumping is it is crazy how much dumping. And of course, they're going to dump it all the farm roads, and they're going to dump right in the middle of the farm roads. So real quick, me and Jake Holloway, Jerry Hill's grandson, we were checking water one day, and there was just this pile of trash just right there in the middle of my road, huge pile. So I did a little investigation work, little detective work myself. I opened it up, and I started going through the mail that was in there, and I found an address. So I Googled that address, and sure shit, just right down the road. So I got, his name was Zach or something, so I got that guy, and I went over to his house, knocked on the door. Is Zach home? Oh, yeah. So Zach, come out here, Zach. And I said, look, and I got your stuff right here. And I said, I'm either going to turn you in right now or you're going to go clean it up. You know what I mean? And my wife was pissed that I did that. She said, I get it. You just can't do that stuff these days.
People have guns and are crazy.
Yeah, I get it. I should have done that. But, man, it has got to a level and I don't know if the dump costs too much to do. I don't know what.
People have no respect, no common courtesy. I mean, when you drive on the road, you see it all the time, right? But in general, that's some of the problems we've got with this country. They have no respect for law enforcement, no respect for the rule of law, the Constitution, and all those issues. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running for sheriff, because
Why don't you tell us why you're running for sheriff?
Okay. So I think the saddest day of my life was the day I had to leave my radio and my keys on my desk and leave after 40 years. I wasn't ready to go. And so about a month later, I started to get phone calls from deputies and detention officers and even civilian employees. Hey, Chief, things are going downhill fast here, kind of like what you just said. We need you back. You need to run for sheriff. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not a politician. I'm not, I'm a career deputy sheriff, but I don't want to run for office. And I kept getting those phone calls. And then one day I'm sitting on my back patio having a cigar and some scotch, and my phone rings, and it's a guy that I knew. I watched him. He came work for me when he was a rookie. He was a lieutenant now. He's a SWAT commander. Big old cowboy, and he's fearless guy. If I was half the deputy he was, I'd be proud of myself, right? And 45 minutes in the conversation, he starts crying because he was telling me all the things that have happened, the same things I've been hearing for the last 10 months. So when we got done with that phone call, I was sitting there, I was kind of numb, and I was like, God damn, this is my family. This is my second family. I grew up there. And so I go inside, and my wife is making dinner. And my dad's, he was 88, 89 at the time. He's a retired lieutenant NYPD, and he's sitting there. And I tell Stacy, I says, hey, I'm going to run for sheriff. She says, I saw this coming.
Yeah.
And my dad's at the table, and he goes, what the F? What's the matter with you? Why would you do that and give up? You got a cabin up north. You got your horses and photography, and you and Stacy go fly fishing together. I said, Dad, I just have it in here. I'm hollow right now, and I got to do this, because if I don't win, that's fine. But at least I did it. So I did. I ran in 2020. That's when I met you.
Yep.
And so I met you out in the middle, in Arlington.
Arlington.
Okay. And if you don't know this county, Arlington is out in the sticks. Okay.
There's a post
And
office.
so I pull up, and I've got this Chevy dually, right? And I got my cowboy boots on and all this stuff. And I walk in, and he goes, oh my God. Remember?
Yeah,
I remember this.
I do.
He says, you're running for sheriff? I said, yeah. He says, I've never seen anybody out here that's a sheriff or anybody running for sheriff. We hardly see deputies out here.
Yeah.
And you're out here coming to talk to me and my friends. I don't know, 5, 6 of you guys were there, right? And I said, yeah, because I'm going to be the sheriff of everybody in this county, not just the cities.
Yeah.
And that's when we kind of hit it off. And of course,
I was so impressed you were driving a dually and wearing cowboy boots. I was like, yeah, that's my kind of guy right here.
Yeah, with the New York accent.
Yeah, with the New York accent, yeah. We looked past that immediately as soon as you see the dually.
Yeah, so anyway, that's how we kind of met, and that's how I got involved in it, because the people there asked me to run. And I'm going to read this. I got this about 3 weeks ago. Somebody sent this to me on Messenger, okay? And I'll read it real quick. It says, I'm currently an MCSO detention officer who had the absolute privilege to meet you on many occasions. I will say that you are undoubtedly the kindest, most approachable member of the MCSO command staff I've ever encountered in almost 19 years of service. Your genuine concern for the staff is obvious and heartfelt. You are far and away the most qualified person to lead this organization into the future. You will always have my support. And see, this is what motivates me when I get tired. Like, I left the house this morning at 8 o'clock. I probably won't get home till 9 o'clock tonight. And I do this every day. I do this pretty much 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week. And I'm happy to do it, because I want to be the sheriff for them so they can better protect you, better serve you. That's how this works. If you have people that are happy, and like I wanted to come to work every day for 40 years. When I left, I had 2 years worth of sick time, because I never took sick time. And it was a place that I could be proud to say I was a deputy sheriff.
Yeah, that whole
And being a deputy sheriff was something that I held in very high regard, and something I can say with my grandkids, hey, you know, I was a deputy sheriff for 40 years because we did good every day, right? And so I want to get that kind of mentality back at MCSO because they don't have it right now, because they don't have an administration, even with the current sheriff, that backs them up. And if you know one thing about law enforcement, same thing with the military. Right now, the military cannot fill their quota. Now, I said that about a month ago at a speech, and there was a Marine in the group, and he said, "Not the Marine Corps." And I says, "Okay, sir, I stand corrected." So, but the other branches can't fill because they have a weak leader in Washington. Nobody wants to work for a weak leader. Dozens and dozens of deputies from Maricopa County quit and went to work for Pinell County, took a big cut in pay, and I'll tell you a specific story in a second. And they went to work for Mark Lamb because Mark Lamb is the sheriff there, and he backs his people up. He's out there with them. They respect him, and they love working for him. So one of the guys that worked for me, I don't know if you watched Fridays with Frank. Okay.
Yeah, the guy that pulls everybody over.
Frank Sloop.
Yep.
He does like something on YouTube every Friday. You know, about 5 minutes.
Mark Lamb rides around with him sometimes.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Frank worked with me in the last on December 30th, 2016. The last time I put my uniform on, I rode with Frank.
Oh.
Frank was a sergeant with MCSO.
Really?
Frank quit MCSO 7 months into Penzone taking over and went to work for Pinell County and took a big cut in pay. But he's so happy. I had him over at the house on Easter Sunday for dinner. And he is just so happy being a deputy sheriff like it used to be. He said, "You know what, Chief, that's the way it was when I worked for you." And that's what I want to bring back, because happy people will take good care of the public. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, you talk too much about morale and all that." And I said, yeah, because it's a direct relation to how well they do their job. And right now in law enforcement across this country, cops don't want to do their job because they don't want to get in trouble. And the big cities that don't back their cops up, they don't do anything. And that, why do you think crime is way up? Besides the drugs coming in and all that stuff. And we can talk about that too if you want.
I do think that the deputies right now, just from what I see, they don't have, you know, like when you have a good boss, you have somebody to fall back on. You know, you can call your dad and ask him a question, or you know what I mean? Like, you got a good boss, you've got somebody to fall back on. Those sheriffs show up out there at Hacienda, they send one guy, 300 guys on the river bottom shooting, and they flat ass tell you, "I ain't going down there." I said, "Well, tell your boss to send some more people. I pay taxes just like everybody else. Tell your boss we don't got no more people."
I think that was one of the reasons we met.
Yeah, that was.
And
that was the meeting.
I know the copper thefts.
Yeah,
you know,
huge in the wells.
you know, huge, right? And you know, the big pumps and all of in there. These guys would tear your pumps apart,
And I'm sure since 1979 here, you've seen everything that I can think of in my memory, every kind of drug thing come in and out and in and out from, I don't know, from whatever to whatever, crack to cocaine to whatever there was. But now this fentanyl, this is a different kind of drug. I mean, I don't do drugs, but like that's like you see these people. Me and Brandon seen some people at the bus stop the other day, and they're just sleep just out.
well, fentanyl is synthetic heroin. Okay, much more potent than heroin is. And you know why it's such a big thing right now? You know what a street value of one fentanyl pill is?
Cheap.
33 cents.
Yeah.
It costs you 33 cents.
Yeah.
You can get handful for
So
$5.
right. And you can't buy heroin or meth for that. And so that's why they're risking their lives taking those fentanyl pills, because you get a 4, 5, 6 hour high off a pill or two. And for 33 cents?
And the scary part for your deputies and for all police officers, it's not like marijuana or cocaine or whatever other drug in the past. It could hurt your guys just by touching it.
Yeah.
And that's the scary
Yeah.
part for you
Yeah.
guys.
Well, at least now we don't see it in powder form like we first did, and that's what was. There's a couple of videos out there of L.A. County deputies. One guy just picked up this thing, and within seconds he's down.
Yeah.
And the Narcan. Good thing they had Narcan with them. They had to give him 2 shots of Narcan, and so now fentanyl is so prevalent. It's a crisis in the jail system.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to that. We touched on that a very little in the beginning, but I mean, everybody thinks they know what probably goes on in jail, but not a lot of people do, right? So, like, kind of explain that to us. Like, how can fentanyl be a problem on the inside of the jail?
Very easy. It's the sheriff only keeps people. Most 80% of the people in jail are not convicted of a crime. So there's a lot of movement in and out of the facilities. Right?
Okay, that makes sense.
And so if this was a problem with doing away with Tent City, this is one of the problems, doing away with Tent City, because now.
And he needed a cheap headline. That's why he did
Yeah,
it.
well, it was something Arpaio did, and so he got rid of everything, right? So the problem with that is not understanding how a jail system runs. When you have inmates that go outside a hard facility and come back in, the guys that are stuck there, they will intimidate the guys. We know you're going out to court tomorrow. There's going to be some pills, in this area. I want you to pick them up and bring them in here. And if you don't, we're going to get your family. Right? So these guys are intimidated, and that's how most of it gets in. Very rarely does it come in from an employee. And if it does, it's usually a civilian employee. It doesn't work for the sheriff. That doesn't go through the background like most of our, that everybody that works at MCSO does. Lawyers bring it in. They can come in the mail. There's a lot of ways. A lot of contractors come in, plumbers and electricians and those kinds of things, and they'll bring it in because, again, they're intimidated by the cartel members and the gang members that are in custody. And so that's how it gets in. And then when you have 1,000 officer shortage right now at MCSO in the jails alone, they don't have time to search everybody like they used to. They don't have a good jail intelligence system that I set up when I first took over the jails in 1998, 99. And we would always get intel information, what's going on, and we'd be able to bust people, bringing them in and all that. We arrested, in my 18 years of running jails, 2 officers, that's it, that worked for us. And again, they were intimidated by the cartel members. They compromised them, and they told them, we'll get your family or we're going to report you for bringing in a hamburger for me. That's how they get them. So, it's a huge problem with a lot of facilities, mostly prison systems. But now, 49 people a year on average have died in custody the last 7 years, because of, most of it's because of the drug issue.
Like overdosing. And
They overdose. I've been told, I haven't verified this, I'm going to FOI some places to find the exact numbers, but 3 to 5 people a day in the jail system have to be taken out the emergency room and given Narcan. They can't keep Narcan on the shelves, according to one of the officers I talked to.
Think of the money that cost.
Oh, it's crazy.
yeah, and then they charge you for the stuff for the diabetics, all those insulin, all the shots and everything, but you get Narcan for free.
Yeah.
But so how was Tent City helping with that?
Tent City helped with that because those trustees didn't go back to a hard facility. They went back to tents.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have those lockdown major drug and gang members
Yeah, they were all kind of the same dudes.
They're all the
Some
low.
DUI guys.
They were all convicted misdemeanors, most of them,
Right.
low level of first time offenders, drunk drivers, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and petty thieves. But that was it. That's the jail population in the tents, and they were also outside trustees. They cooked the food in our kitchen, and they took care of facilities and the laundry. When you've got basically 8,000 or so plus, and one time we had 12,000 inmates, so we did a lot of laundry every day, and we used them to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now when those trustees go out and they come back to a hard facility, then they're going to bring drugs in.
I think everything should be tent city. I think there shouldn't be anything in AC. In my opinion. I mean, you're in jail.
Well, I'm gonna do something about that when I become the sheriff. I'm not gonna be able to put tents up, and the reason for that is tents are temporary facility, the temporary structures, and we needed a fire marshal from the city of Phoenix every year had to come and inspect it and give us a permit. And as the city became more left and more democratic, it got harder for us every
It
year
got harder for the fire
to
marshal
get the
say,
fire marshal on board. And so now, what this current administration did is they took all the tents down. They had the inmates rip them up, probably $500,000 worth of tents, so they couldn't be used again. They took the steel frames the tents were on. They took that all down, sold it for scrap, I guess. I don't know what
So the
they
news
did.
station can sit there and
They
video.
made it very difficult. So I have a plan to bring back some type of structure that's not temporary, but it's not going to be luxurious.
TP.
Hey, Mark.
I mean, yeah, you can give them swamp cooler.
I'm thinking, the old Quonset hut
There you go.
kind of thing, something like that. So, and not only that, it was a good thing to teach people, these low-level offenders, this is not a fun place to
Well,
be.
that's
A
what I've
life of
always
crime isn't for me, and I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't know if you guys know, but I know some people, friends of mine, that spent time in Tent City for drunk driving, and they say I will never drink and drive again.
Well, I can tell you that back in my younger day, I liked to get in a little trouble.
No, really.
Yeah, I got arrested one time for fighting, and I had to go to Fourth Ave jail, and that was enough for me
Mhm.
because that's when Arpaio was there. I'm sure you were there. Obviously, I didn't know nobody, but I tell you this all the time: Arpaio made jail somewhere you did not want to go.
Right.
And I mean, now you look at it, it's like I don't know. It's
Well, I'm telling you, this is what happens when you elect a Democrat for sheriff.
right.
So they put carpeting in the day rooms. They have flat screen TVs, and you guys sitting down.
Yeah.
They get iPads.
Oh yeah.
So they can communicate with their fellow criminals outside the system and all this stuff. And so we're going to take away those damn iPads.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get the feed. I'm not going to destroy the TVs that are already there, but we certainly aren't going to give them all these channels like they can watch.
Yeah.
Their average length of stay in the county jail system's 13 days. Okay. It's not like going to state prison where the average is about 3.5 years. So we can do different things than you could in the state prison system. And again, this is a learning lesson for these guys and gals.
Well, I went one time.
To commit a crime.
It took me.
That's all it is. It's not. It's all constitutional. We will respect their constitutional rights because, like I said, 80% of these people are there, and they haven't been convicted of a crime yet. So, but when they did get convicted and they were low-level offenders, they'd go to Tent City.
Well, I can tell you from the other side, like I said, he made it somewhere I didn't never want to go back to, but I didn't feel like my civil rights were violated.
No.
I mean, yeah, it sucked. I mean, I had to sit on hard benches and, the yes sir, no sir. And I mean, it sucked, but I didn't feel violated by any, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you weren't violated.
Well, that was always good. Yeah.
I think
The
if
lights
you-
stayed on.
If you take the AC away from them guys, I think your crime rate. I think your crime rate in the 8 months of the summer will probably go down a lot. all the crime, like, we're not taking any chances, too hot. Like, I'm doing all my crime in the
You know,
wintertime.
I remember, probably one of the greatest things that Arpaio was known for was when we were all being attacked by running, Tent City, right? And oh, it's hot in Arizona, and Arpaio came out with, well, you know what? Our men and women in the United States military are over in the Middle East, and
In the
it's
same
just as
tent.
hot there, and they're sleeping, they don't even have a tent,
Yeah.
and they didn't commit a crime.
Yeah.
That comment
Yeah.
was blasted around the world, and that put Arpaio and our tent city on the map. And so this new sheriff comes in 2017, tears them down, and all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you a secret. Vast majority of the people in Tent City wanted to be there. They didn't want to be locked down in a cell in a hard facility.
Yeah.
They'd much rather be out there. And it's interesting because the ACLU would go around, and I'd go around with them, and they wanted to talk to the inmates, and yeah, go ahead. And they would walk away shaking their heads. They want to be here. I said, yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a bunch of women there because we had women in tents too. And there's a bunch of women sitting there and they're all doing each other's hair and, having a good old time. And one of the ACLU lawyers talked to her and she said, no, this is like a Girl Scout camp out. So Arpaio made it sound a lot worse than it was because that was his thing, But in reality, it was a good learning, like you said, it was a good tool to learn. It helped keep the system safe. And I even got a phone call. Somebody asked me today, I was doing an interview for one of the unions to endorse me. And they asked me, well, how are you going to appeal to the Democrat vote? I said, I have some people that are Hispanic and leaders of a community we provide law enforcement for, and they voted for me in 2020 because I helped clean up their town from crime. And when you left, town crime rate has skyrocketed again. And the other one, I got a phone call from a guy I went to college with, and he's like, hey, Jerry, he says, I heard you're running for sheriff. We want to support you. And I go, Robert, you're a Democrat. You're Hispanic. You're a defense attorney. He says, yeah. He says,
all of the above.
my group wants to support you. And I go, wait a second. Do you have any Republicans as defense attorneys here in Phoenix? And he goes, I don't think so. And I says, why would you guys want to support me? And he says, because the way you took care of the inmates, you allowed them work, release, work, furlough. Penn Zone stopped that. He says, my clients are losing their jobs and for minor crimes. And, one of the things is to stop somebody from coming back to jail, which crime prevention should be on the sheriff's radar, is to keep them employed. So we had programs for people, a lot of people never interviewed. They don't know how to dress for an interview for a job. They don't know how to fill out a resume. We taught them all that stuff too. So Arpaio made it sound like this was hell for politics, but in reality, it was a great system that needs to come back. And so I'm going to do something about that. The other thing I'm going to bring back, because we're talking about fentanyl and the drugs coming into this county, is in 2010 when I became the chief deputy, I put detectives out off I-8 down by Gila Bend, which is our southern border. We're not a border county, but it was our southern border. And we put detectives out in the desert. We had former Delta guy training them on how to behave out in an open environment like the desert and all that and defend themselves against the cartels. And within 6 months, these detectives were the number one high-intensity drug trafficking area in the country. They were nailing it. They were stopping the drugs coming in and the child sex trafficking and the human trafficking coming into this county, and they made a huge impact. A week after this guy took over in 2017, January 2017, he disbanded all that.
Oh, yeah.
and there's been nobody out there since.
Why? What would be the reason that they would stop a good thing like that?
Well, I have my opinion, and my opinion is that George Soros, you guys know who he is,
I heard of her.
he gave Penzone $2.3 million to beat Arpaio. And that kind of law enforcement didn't fit with the plan. And so that's my opinion. I don't know that for a fact, but come on, the handwriting was on the wall.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of beers with some of these detectives that worked that detail back in December. And they told me something I'd never heard before. And he said, Chief, we had several cases on major drug cartel members that needed another week or two work. And when he disbanded the unit, he didn't let us finish those cases, and he didn't reassign them to another detective. So these guys didn't get prosecuted, didn't get arrested. And I was just beside myself when I heard that. And I just heard that 5-6 months ago.
Man.
So
we need law enforcement. We need a sheriff that believes in the rule of law, enforcing the law, but also takes care of the public.
I got a question now. I've always wanted to ask the sheriff. Do you so Mark Lamb, we talked a little bit about Mark Lamb.
Yep.
Like as sheriffs, you have your county, this is all your county, Pinal County, that's all Mark Lamb's county. But do you guys go to breakfast together and work together and say, hey, my guys are going to be over here in I-8 and Gila Bend, your guys are going to be over here on Beacle Road. Let's try, you know what I mean? Do you guys work together like that?
Well, it tells me that question is a stupid question. And it tells me that you didn't go to my website
No, I did
and
not
see
go to your
the
website.
video right there on the front page of my website.
Right. But I'm not just talking
me,
about you.
Let me finish.
I'm not talking about
me and Mark Lamb standing there. We shot this video about 3 weeks ago in the Vehicle Valley, right where the counties meet.
Oh, I know it well.
And there's a big sign there that says caution, drug trafficking area, be careful out here. This is our desert. This is open desert. And so we are definitely going to work together. Now I know Mark's running for the U.S. Senate, and I'm sad to see him go, but I'm going to work with the Pinal County sheriffs and the deputies there, and they're going to work together because they did work together when our teams were out there. Mark Lamb put some of his people out there, and so we worked really well together, and so that needs to happen again.
So not just Mark though, but the guy from Yuma County and
Yep.
all.
I know
do sheriffs all kind of?
I know these guys really well. Now, the sheriff in Yuma County, he is a real cowboy.
That dude is a cowboy. I've seen him down on
He
the
is.
border.
He's a pretty cool guy.
Seen him
And, the sheriff down there in, not Graham County. And
Cochise?
Cochise. We were chief deputies together, so we kind of
that's where our processing plant is. So he stops by every once in a while, gets a steak or whatever.
Yeah.
He'll come. He's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, and so we're gonna definitely work together. And again, that's the value of somebody like me that grew up at the sheriff's office, understands how sheriffs work together.
Yeah.
The sheriff can call me from Cochise County and say, "Hey, Jerry, I need some help down here. Can you send me 50 deputies?" And you betcha, and we can go down there and help him, and I can do that same thing with him.
Yeah.
So, when there's major fires, there was a fire up north, we sent 100 deputies and posse members. Oh, that's another thing.
No, we're going to get to
Okay,
the posse.
let's talk about the posse. So when I left, we had 1,600 dedicated, well-trained posse members. You know how many we have right now?
Steady.
40.
Really?
And
there's still posse?
Yeah, well, I took steers to the posse ropings many times. I used to provide roping cattle, and they had one.
I didn't even know that was still.
Mundall was part of, and I did it probably 3 or 4 times. I would supply the cattle for them.
Yeah.
No charge, by the way.
So I was talking to a guy. He was at a fundraiser that I had a couple of weeks ago in Cave Creek, and he pulled me aside and he says, "Hey, Jerry," he says, "I retired from LAPD. I was a homicide detective. I joined your posse 3 years ago." I said, "Well, it's not my posse." And he said, "For 3 years I've been a posse member. He says, I haven't been to training. They haven't let me do anything. He says, what I joined the posse is I wanted to work some of the cold cases that the sheriff's office had, old homicide cases that haven't been solved yet. And what better expertise is this guy, homicide detective, LAPD, that could help us with his expertise for free.
And he just wanting to do
And
it.
he just wants to do it.
So he doesn't have to
And
do
so,
a honeydew list.
and
for
he
his
can't,
wife.
he can't because they won't let him. They won't let him get involved. And there's been no training in the posse. And that, again, that's a city mentality of posse members. What the hell do we need that for?
Well, that's what I keep saying. That's all I need out there in the Hacienda.
That's part of the sheriff's history.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 150 years. MCSO has been here for 150 years. And part of their legacy, and I tell people this all the time, I said, a posse member is just an important part of the sheriff's office as the sheriff himself. Because it's the citizens out there protecting their fellow citizens, and they really help the deputies. And now the patrol staff is at 50% staffing, right?
I believe
They've got maybe 2 or 3 deputies here in the District 2 substation.
From 303, they told me from 303 to Harquahela to Gila Bend, there's 3 guys.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
And so I got a phone call it's been a couple years ago. It was New Year's Eve, and the Mesa substation, which is actually busier for calls for service than here in District 2. Deputy called me and he said, we have two people on the road. And he said, there's been a call holding for 4 hours of a Tempe officer that's been threatening to kill himself, and we have nobody to send. And I'm like, damn it, if I was the sheriff, I'd get in my patrol car and drive over there. I was just dumbfounded that we couldn't go help a fellow officer when he needed it, because they have nobody out there protecting the people. And that's what it's all about. Sheriff's function is to make sure we respect people's constitutional rights, First and Second Amendment, and all the other ones, and keep the public safe. That's what a sheriff is supposed to do. And the sheriff keeps people safe by running a good jail system. So we have available bed space for all 25 municipal police agencies that utilize our jails, because they don't have their own jail system. And to have the deputies out here keeping the public that they serve. And the sheriff's office is the primary law enforcement responder for 500,000 people in the unincorporated areas, and 5 contract towns where they're not big enough to have their own police department. So that's what we do.
That's like Guadalupe, right?
Guadalupe, Cave Creek, Carefree, Fountain Hills, and Gila Bend.
All right, well, with that, I think you got a long drive home.
I got a long drive home, so for your people that like what you hear, I would ask you to please support my campaign for sheriff. Go to my website, and I'm hoping your IT guy is...
Oh, yeah, he's all over it.
He could put this up.
He's all
But
over
my website is Sheridan, 4, sheriff2024.com. Go to my website. You can make donations. You can volunteer like you guys did to help me put up those big signs alongside the road, because it's such a important part of running a successful campaign to get those signs out, because it's about name ID, right? And it's unfortunate, people will vote for somebody that's got more signs than the other guy, and not who the most qualified person is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I've only met you today in the past, hour, and you're just like every other guy that that I deal with on a regular basis. You're just a normal
Earth.
Yeah, you're normal, same.
I'm not.
You remind me a lot of the guys that I do business with, no bullshit attitude, and that's the people I like.
So just full disclosure, I have my horses and I take them out, and my wife and we just go out in the desert and hang out. And when this time of year, we have our saddlebags, put some ice in, some beers in there, and just go out. And that's what I do. I don't do any rodeo, and I don't know how to swing a lasso, and do all the stuff you guys do with them. I just use them. I take them up. I have a cabin up north, and I'm running for sheriff. I can't do it I didn't do it last year. I can't do it this year, but we have a cabin up north and ride through the forest up there, and it's just that's what I do with my horses.
That's awesome.
What? But you feed pellets, so
Yeah.
can't help you there. But if you ever switched over to the hay side,
It's too messy. Yeah,
I wanted to be like I supplied the sheriff with hay, you know.
Yeah.
I'm still probably gonna tell everybody that though.
I'm still gonna tell them. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming.
Hey,
Yeah,
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Thanks, buddy.
I loved it. I love you guys, and
right.
I appreciate
I'll
it.
put a sand on my front.
And we're gonna get this done. We're gonna win this time. We're gonna make some changes the minute I get there, and my last thing. My leadership philosophy is very simple. I work for them. They don't work for me.
Yeah.
They work for the citizens of this county, and that's very simple. And I want my deputies to, when they walk up to somebody, to be nice, unless that person isn't nice back, and then all bets are off, and they need to take care of their business and do their job, whatever that takes.
And
And I will be there to support them 100%.
I'm so glad that the dumping is now going to be a firing squad being caught. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, hey, thanks for coming to the T-Mac. We surely appreciate it. Be safe on your drive home, and vote Sheridan.
Yeah, please vote. And that's a big thing. That's why I lost in 2020. There was a lot of Republicans that didn't vote.
This one's going
I'll give you a quick example, real quick. I'm 46 years old. I'm sitting in my school board meeting, and the only thing on my mind is I look at all these people making decisions to spend $15 million on nothing is, damn, my vote counts.
It does.
Because I voted those people in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, your vote definitely counts.
Well,
So
you
get
talk
out there
about
and
them
vote.
signs, though. Brandon told me about you coming on. Like I told you earlier, I've seen your sign today 850 times.
Now, just so you know, I know you complained about looking at my face. I hate that photograph because I'm smiling in it.
Right.
But my wife and our team that we have helping us are all women.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, you need to put this picture on your campaign sign. I'm like, no, I don't want it. And then, okay, you want my face on there because, marketing people look at faces, right? And they said, you always have to put your face on there. And then they're the ones that picked that stupid picture on there, not me, just so you know, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.